What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Lions video. The Detroit Lions today did something very special. They did their annual Family Fest at Ford Field, where they held training camp at Ford Field. They did drills, they did walkthroughs, and they did a full 11-on-11 scrimmage in front of the home fans in the home stadium. It's a very cool, atmosphere. They have a lot of cool stuff. They gave away a lot of very cool stuff, and they had a lot of very cool items on discount, including that signed Matthew Stafford helmet, which I am sure people are going to get mad about. It's signed by Matt Stafford, but it was a cool helmet and it was pretty cheap. A Darius Slay jersey's over there. That's brand new in the background. And of course, the Kerryon Johnson signed football is also new. I got that at Ford Fest. That was like $10. I love Kerryon still. He's not a Lion anymore, but I still like him as a player. He's still one of my favorite players. So yeah, it was a very cool event. Obviously, it was still a training camp. A lot was still going on. There was still a lot of takeaways to be had. And today I wanted to talk about my personal review. Obviously, this was the first time that I was able to be in person and actually get my own takeaways from this training camp. This was my first time actually being able to attend a training camp, being able to attend a Lions practice and see the big takeaways and see, everything that's actually going on and get my own takeaways, which I think is really, really fun, and I would love to do more in the future. So today, that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about the Detroit Lions training camp, their Family Fest at Ford Field, and of course, the biggest takeaways from today's day of training camp. But before we get into it, before we start talking about the Detroit Lions and their biggest takeaways from this most recent training camp, if you're new to the channel and you're enjoying the content, please consider liking the videos and subscribing to the channel. It takes just 2 seconds out of you to do so. It is quick, it is free, and it is incredibly easy to do, and you will be helping the channel out more than you could possibly know. So if you could do that, take those 2 seconds to like and subscribe. I'd be incredibly appreciative for it. But with all of that being said, without any further ado, let's get right into talking about today's biggest takeaways from Lions training camp.
So we get Anthony Ryder from South Lyon, Michigan, recently selected as the Lions 2020 Fan of the Year. He has a passion about sports broadcasting.
With the 112th selection in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver, USC. One pride, baby! Yeah!
Now, for today's video, I am primarily going to be focusing on the 11v11 takeaways. That's where a lot of my takeaways came from, and that's where a lot of the players impressed me the most. Obviously, walkthroughs are important, stuff like that, but for me, a lot of the big takeaways came from 7-on-7 or, 11v11 scrimmage that they put on. Now, the first takeaway that I had, and the first player that I was really, really impressed with was Jared Goff. He looked really sharp today. Was a little sketchy early in warmups, did miss a couple passes when warming up, but once the actual scrimmage began, once he actually got through the warm-ups and through the walkthroughs and stuff like that, he looked very, very sharp. The first drive of the scrimmage, he went 5 for 5, including a 6-yard touchdown pass to TJ Hockenson in the back of the end zone, where he scrambled out, was throwing on the move, and made a really nice throw right to TJ's, right in front of his face. Gave him a very easy, very catchable ball, and of course, they converted for the touchdown. Jared Goff also had a really nice touchdown drive in the 2-minute drill. He drove down the field in, I believe, just under a minute 30, and, completed again another touchdown to TJ Hockenson, one of his favorite targets, and it seemed like him and TJ had a really good chemistry going on there. He just looked really sharp all around. Didn't miss a lot of passes. Actually had a really nice touchdown pass to Amon-Ra St. Brown as well. He went 3 for 3 on touchdown drives. He commanded 3 drives for the Detroit Lions with the starting team. The starting team scored 3 touchdowns, so you can't ask for more efficiency than that. They weren't super dynamic. They weren't super explosive. They didn't have a big play down the field or anything like that, any big passes. Part of that is, I think, just the offensive scheme. We kind of knew that this team was going to be a little bit more methodical, a little bit more, just slow it down, be slow and methodical, drive down the field, be consistent. And although that was exactly what it was, although the Detroit Lions didn't really have any big explosive plays down the field, they were methodical. They were kind of a slower offense, but they were a very efficient offense, converting very quickly. Of course, you're not going to hit your teammates at practice. You're not going to really go all out on defense if you were, but I thought the offense looked really, really solid for the time that they were on the field, especially Jared Goff. And Jared Goff in particular really caught my eye as just kind of, getting up to speed, playing very sharp, didn't miss a lot of passes, played quick, definitely had a lot of checkdowns, definitely had a lot of intermediate stuff, but I think part of that's just the way the offense was working that day. I think part of that is just the wide receiver issue that we will talk about in a minute. And overall, Jared Goff might not have had the most explosive day. I don't know exactly how many yards he passed for or anything, but overall, 3 for 3, 3 touchdowns on 3 drives. Can't ask for more efficiency than that. Now, we talked about TJ Hockenson. TJ was used, I would say, sparingly in the scrimmage. He wasn't used a lot, didn't get a lot of snaps, didn't see a ton of time except for in the 2-minute drill, but when he was on the field, he was really effective. Again, having 2 touchdowns, one on the opening drive and one on the final drive that the starting offense took. He had 2 touchdowns, wasn't on the field a ton, but when he was on the field, he was very impactful. And like I said earlier, him and Goff really are beginning to kind of, build up this chemistry, and they're really starting to build something special. And they are, they're on the same page. They are together. They are, reading routes the same way. They are reading defenses the same way. They are on the same page. And as a result, of course, they came up with 2 touchdowns together, which again, very positive to see from those two. TJ Hockenson obviously being our number 1 receiving weapon, and Jared Goff being our starting quarterback this year. Chemistry is there, the chemistry is building, and it was really good to see on the field. It looked clean, it looked sharp, and I was really impressed with what I saw from those two especially. Now, I mentioned the wide receiver position. I mentioned that there was a little bit of problem there, and it wasn't that the wide receivers that were on the field played bad necessarily. It was just the fact that a lot of our wide receivers weren't actually on the field. Tyrell Williams, Brashad Perryman, and Quintez Cephas were all sitting out of this practice. I don't know if they were injured, or if I don't know whether they were injured or whether the Detroit Lions just wanted to give some of their other guys a little bit more time and a little bit more spotlight in front of the fans. Today it was more focused on Amon-Ra St. Brown, especially. He got a lot of targets and a lot of work. Khalif Raymond was on the field, got a couple targets. Victor Bolden had a couple nice catches. Sage Surratt had a couple nice targets. He worked against Jeff Okudah a couple different times in the red zone and just all the up and down the field during the scrimmage. He went against Jeff Okudah, looked okay, didn't really have a catch, I don't believe, came in with a reception, but did have a couple targets and looked pretty solid. Those guys really got a majority of the work today, and when they were on the field, those players actually did look solid. Again, Amon-Ra came up with a touchdown. Khalif Raymond, I don't think had any big plays or any big receptions, but played well on special teams and, was running good routes. It looked pretty solid, although he wasn't targeted a ton in the scrimmage. Surratt was targeted a couple times, looked pretty solid. Bolden had a really nice catch, over the middle from Jared Goff, made a really nice diving catch, came in with it, got back up, and kept moving. So from there, it was really solid. The wide receivers that were played very well, and I think the depth was kind of shown today. And, a lot of people are still going to say this wide receiver core isn't great, but from what I actually saw on the field, I think this wide receiver core is more than capable of getting the job done, like we've been saying for the past, 3-4 months. That, yeah, the wide receiver core might not have an alpha, might not have a big dominant guy on the field that Jared Goff can just chuck it up to and hope, but at the end of the day, they're more than efficient enough to get the job done, and they're more than efficient enough to help Jared Goff be successful in his stint in Detroit, however long or short that may be. Now, although the wide receivers had a really solid day through the air, although the wide receivers, a lot of them looked really solid, that went, at least the ones that were on the field, the defensive backs really stood out to me the most out of every single positional group. Yeah, the offensive line was fun to watch. Yeah, the starting offense was fun to watch, but one thing that I especially like to focus on, and one thing that I was really looking for, was the defensive backs. I was watching Jeff Okudah. I was watching, Amani Oruwariye. I was watching Tracy Walker in the starting defense, but on the second team defense, I was really focused on Ifeatu Melifonwu. I was really focused on AJ Parker, was targeted a couple times. Jalen Elliott made a couple plays. Mike Ford was really good on both the first and second teams. He played slot for the first team and boundary for the second team. He had a couple nice passes defended. Okudah played very well. Amani played very well. Melifonwu had a really nice pass deflection. Jalen Elliott, the second-year safety out of Notre Dame, playing as a starting for the second team safety. He was starting safety for the second team. He was the free safety for Team 2's defense. He had a couple nice hits in the air, had a couple nice plays all throughout the day. I thought he was actually really impressive. He's a guy that stuck out to me that I wasn't expecting and actually kind of forgot about, but he played very well. He had a couple nice hits in the air and had a couple nice plays on the football, which was really good to see. But overall, it was just it wasn't really a full-out scrimmage, right? They weren't going full out. They weren't really trying to injure each other. They weren't trying to really hit each other, put each other on the ground, or do anything like that. It was more skewed towards the offense. The offense obviously was going to have more success, but overall, there was very few negatives to take away from today. The defense made some plays. They had some really nice passes defended. They had some really nice defended passes. They had some really good plays here and there. The offense was slow and methodical, but they were efficient moving down the field. A lot of the offenses, especially the starting offense, played incredibly well. The second and third team, or I guess the second team and the second team with David Blau instead of Tim Boyle, they were both okay. Had a couple mistakes, had a couple things here and there, a couple throws that they'd like back, but overall, very few things to complain about today, except for the kicking. The kicking was a little bit off today. In warm-ups, they looked really solid. In warm-ups, they didn't miss a lot of kicks, but during the scrimmage, both Matthew Wright and Randy Bullock missed field goals. They missed actually back-to-back field goals. They weren't necessarily easy field goals. They were a little bit farther out, and they were tougher field goals to make, but they are still field goals that I expect them to make nonetheless. But just like everybody else, it is training camp. They are still getting up to speed. They are still working on stuff. They're going to improve by the time the regular season comes around. So I'm not too worried about it right now, but I did think it was a little bit noteworthy to mention that they were missing a couple kicks here and there. They did hit a lot of field goals as well. They did hit a lot of extra points, but each of them did miss one or two field goals, respectively. So I did think that was worth mentioning. But with all that being said, that is life for you guys today. Thank you all so much for watching the video. Let me know if you guys were there. Let me know what your biggest takeaways were from the day. Let me know what you guys thought about the event as a whole. But with all that being said, that is like I for you guys today. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, and as always, go Lions!